Hey everyone, today I'm going to go over how to make a proper test for an HTTP client. In this case, we have a main function that calls run. It calls run with some arguments. It has scheme, host, repo. It makes a request to the GitHub API using a HTTP client that's provided. Then it takes it reads the response into a structure of pull requests. And then we take the most recent pull request and we copy it to the standard output. So to test this is pretty hard because our second HTTP request is actually dependent on the response of the first one. And then also we go to a diff URL, which let's quickly look at what the response data of the pull request endpoint is. So this diff URL here, you'll notice that if we go to this link, it actually redirects us. So we're going to recreate that redirect in our test. Let's get started. So we're going to create a new function. We'll call it test run. And then we are going to first start by creating a mux. So a mux is going to be an HTTP new serve mux. So this is going to be a multiplexer for our test server. We're going to say HTTP test.new server, and we're going to pass in the mux. So we're going to have server. We have a server that serves our test traffic. Our test traffic is going to be from this handler, and then we get a client. The client is going to be our serve.client. Cool. So let's go ahead and get started. We want to first set up a handler. So our handler is going to use our mux to handle different patterns and return them. So the first pattern it's going to handle is going to be this polls endpoint. It's actually more specific than that. So we're going to pass it some repo, and then the endpoint's going to look like this. So let's actually just copy that over. So the endpoint is going to be repos, repo.polls, and then we'll just, set the repo equal to whatever we had it here. That way our test data is correct. And in this test, I'm not going to use any mocking. I'm going to show you how to make everything just using the base libraries. Cool, so now we're going to create our handler func. We first need to read the body that the response is going to be. So the body is going to be equal to os.read file. We downloaded this testdata.json. The easiest way to do that is just to use a curl. So curl the pull request URL and pipe it into a test data file. So let's os.read that /testdata/polls.json, and then assert.noError t-error. And we actually kind of want to stop running it if there is an error, so we're going to require .noError here actually. Cool. And then one interesting thing is the next request actually needs to know the host that this server is running on, because we're going to be reading this first diff URL and making a request there. So we can actually do some sort of trick where we take this and let's say diff URL replace, save that. So we're actually gonna say the body is equal to strings.replace, replace the diff URL, and then we're gonna build a URL.string. Cool. So this is the body, and we've replaced everything. Let's build our URL. So HTTP test servers use the scheme of HTTP. Let's extract that. So let's say scheme equals scheme, and then scheme equals HTTP. Now our host, this is the important thing, is going to be whatever our request, the host that it is using. And so our request is actually going to come in from when we call the server, and so it's going to have the accurate address to this host. And then we're going to create a path. Let's just call this pull diff. So that's going to be the path. So this will build our URL. So we're replacing the URL, and then let's replace it everywhere we see it. So this is a byte, so we'll do string body, and then body string equals. Cool. Now let's do w.write header http dot status OK, and then w.write byte body string. So now we're going to write that body back. Let's create another handler function. Now we're going to handle that pull that we're going to redirect to. So this endpoint is going to not read any data. It's actually just going to redirect us. So we're going to keep a URL. We'll call it redirect. We still need the host and the scheme, but this time we're just going to say, all right, we want to http.redirect, and it goes from a response writer to a request, and then we also need a URL, so u.string, and then a code. We're going to be http.status permanently moved, permanent redirect, so that is a 301 or 308. Moved permanently. I prefer 301, so that's the most common one. Then let's create our handler function for this last redirect. So we're going to create the redirect. We're going to give w.write header http.status OK, and then we're going to write some data. Test diff. Cool. Now we have everything. Let's go ahead and run our function. So we're going to first require .noError, that when we run our function, it doesn't fail. And now we need to run it with params. So we're going to create some parameters. First, we need our client. So server.client. Next, our scheme is going to be our scheme. Next, our host is going to be server.url. Next, our repo is going to be our repo. And then we need to take the output so we can check it. So we're going to say standard out equals bytes.newBuffer nil. So that'll create an empty buffer. Then our standard out will be our standard out. Awesome. And then we're going to assert .equal. Actually, let's assert .contains. That our standard out contains our test diff. Awesome. So basically, we're going to assert that when we run this, we get the response of the third one, even though we're making requests to here, and that redirects to here. let's go ahead and try it. Clear, go test. All right, parsing pull diff at offset missing. Cool, we just need a slash there. Unexpected error, invalid escape URL, HTTP. Okay, so the problem is the URL is actually not just a host. So we're going to say URL equals URL.parse server.url, and then we're going to use, we can just keep the scheme u.host. And then we have to make sure there's no error, so require.no error. Error. Great, so everything works. So once again, we are creating a server that has 3 endpoints. The first will give a response with including the host that the requester should request to. Then the requester requests again, and we direct them to a third endpoint where we return some data. And now we're able to run all of this with real test data, exactly how the API would behave. And we can add more tests that test if we respond with different statuses to make sure things fail that should fail. But this is a very idiomatic way to test HTTP servers using just the base HTTP test library in GoCode. Thanks for watching.